Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another live guest interview within Mindful Journey. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If you've been with us for a number of these conversations, welcome back. We're so delighted to have you here today. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat function. And then sometimes we'll get to them in the middle of the conversation if it makes sense as it relates to flow, but mostly we'll get to them on the back end of our conversation today. I'm excited to bring you our guest, Clint Hurdle. Clint and I admittedly have not formally met in person. He so graciously accepted my invitation to join us here. We did have a wonderful conversation on the phone, and it was evident, although as a lifelong Pirate fan, I'd already been exposed to some of the humility with which he presented, but when speaking to him, it was evident that he has a genuine desire to help people and a humility which I believe you'll feel today. If you're a baseball fan in here, he doesn't need much of an introduction. Though I will go through just a little bit of his resume, and most of you who are signed up here with us or watching this on demand later, you've probably seen it in advance. But Clint, feel free to chime in if I'm misspeaking on any of this, but I believe 10 years as a Major League Baseball player, 6 years as a coach, and then 17 years as a manager with two organizations, the Colorado Rockies, who he led to the World Series in 2007, and then the Pittsburgh Pirates, my beloved Pirates, I must say, who they have not been to the playoffs since Clint's departure, and he had taken them back to the promised land since I think it was '92. They hadn't been to the playoffs since prior to him getting there. So we'll get into some of that today, but his resume speaks for itself. But again, some of the things that we'll dive into today is we always do in Mindful Journey. We want to get to the normalization of the challenging things and the tough things. And Clint, like all of us, has gone through some challenges, and to his level of comfort, hopefully he'll speak to some of that today. But with all of that being said, thank you all for being here again. Clint, thank you for accepting the invite to be with us.
Adam, you're welcome. I look forward to sharing a little bit, and I look forward to listening a little bit, and I look forward to answering some questions at the end. So hopefully it can be a learning opportunity for all of us.
Beautiful. That's great. Thank you. So I'd like to start, and I failed to mention in my intro of you, you're currently operating as a special assistant to the GM with the Rockies, if that's accurate. And if that is accurate, what does your day-to-day look like now, Clint, being out of the managerial world of baseball?
Well, my day-to-day now is predicated with about a 14-day work month. I do take some work on at home, but it's minimal. I've learned through my experiences and failures that I need to establish boundaries in my life. I'm not so sure I'm capable of maintaining balance. A lot of people talk about it. We can talk about that later. I look for rhythm. I look for rhythm over balance. Rhythm over balance works for me. But it's 14 actual work days where I'm on site, usually at one of our minor league affiliates. We've got a complex in the Dominican Republic I visit twice a year. We'll have an instructional league program that runs in Scottsdale post-baseball season in late September for minor leaguers, early October. And then I'll go to the affiliates. We have a complex league in Scottsdale, two A-ball affiliates, Fresno and Spokane. We have one in Hartford, which is AA, and our AAA facilities in Albuquerque. I'll visit those prior to the All-Star break once each, and then post-All-Star break once each. I'll spend a week with the scouts around the scouting deadline draft time, when the July draft happens now over the All-Star break. I'll spend time with them. So I'm kind of like a piece of silly putty. They put me where they need me, although I do have an agenda to really spend the majority of my time spending time with our minor league players, our minor league coaches and managers, and making sure we're in alignment from the Dominican Republic all the way up to Albuquerque, our 3A team.
It's a lot to absorb, and it's somebody who's listening in who might not be immersed in the baseball. What you're saying resonates with me because again, a baseball fan, and for those listening in who might not have an understanding of baseball, what does, when you're talking about the different, from the single A, double A to the minor league system to triple A, when you're out there working with the players, with the managers, what type of things are you doing? Is it a development? Are you teaching them baseball? Are you teaching them leadership? Is it a combination? What does that look like?
Well, it's a combination, Adam. And basically, I do a lot of listening first. I do a lot of watching and listening. We only have two options to learn: through our ears and through our eyes. When I speak, I'm not learning anything. I'm exchanging information that I've already learned with somebody else. It's one of the downsides of a podcast or an interview. I'm just, verbally vomiting on people with past experience. When I go on site, I really just try and be that guy. There may be some people listening or people watching that can identify. Have you ever had a person in your life and they walked towards you, you dropped your head and went, "Oh no, here they come." I try not to be that guy. And I basically just call them the "oh no" coach. I want to develop a relationship where they're excited to see me, they're sad to see me go, they're looking forward to the next opportunity to exchange or interact. Listening, watching, and then when appropriate, maybe some hands-on coaching, maybe questions more than directions. Hey, how'd that feel? I watched you doing this and I saw that. How'd that feel to you? I know you're struggling in this area right now. What are you comprehending do you think is going to help you get out of it? I want them to always have an opportunity to have ownership in the development aspect or the learning aspect or even my teaching process. When I was a player, you were basically told what to do. And that's just the way it worked. And, respect was given. Today, respect must be earned. There's three constants that I keep in play, Adam, in any of my leadership building, leadership mentoring, opportunities with younger kids. I learned these lessons my adolescent years, probably 8th grade basketball. Three questions I asked a player, a coach of mine. I've asked presidents, I've asked CEOs these questions when I go in and speak at a corporate event. The first question I ask them is, can I trust you? Because if we've got any coaches on here, I don't just mean sport coaches, I just mean coaches. Nobody's going to let you coach them until they trust you. You'll get a lot of head nodding. They'll say, "Oh yeah, they're not listening to words you say. They don't trust you." Or they are, and while you're talking, they're talking themselves. Well, this guy's an idiot. I can't believe I'm going to have to listen to this guy. I'm just going to have to tolerate it. We're going to have to get through this. They can't wait for you to stop. I really believe with all my heart, nobody allows you to coach them until they trust you. So you've got to develop a blanket of trust, a connection of trust, a bridge of trust. Transparency breeds trust. When they can see that I don't have an agenda, that I don't have any skin in the game, this isn't about me. This is about me maybe sharing some experience, strength, and hope along their journey that might provide them with something they can hold on to and carry with them. Second thing I try and get into play when it's appropriate, when it makes sense, is I show them that I care about them more than their skill set. Anybody can read a skill set. In baseball, if he's a middle infielder, he's got first step quickness. He's got an above average arm. He's very accurate. If it's a hitter, he's got gap power. He gets out of power. He gets out of the box clean. He's a plus runner. I try and look for baseball IQ. I just try and look for guys that know how to play the game. The skill sets have to be pretty good because they're already where they are. I want to show them I care about them off the field. We call it painting the picture or collecting coins. Find out their hobbies. Did they grow up with two parents in the house they grew up with? Were they raised by their mother, or were they raised by just their father? Was there a parent missing along the way? Did they have some male mentorship even outside the home? What was the home life like? Was it good? Was there faith involved? Just different questions. Was it toxic? So I can paint the picture. Were there sisters? What else did you do in school besides play athletics? Did you have a favorite subjects? Do you like movies? Do you like books? What kind of learner are you? So when you show them you care about them, I think that adds value. That it's not just going to be about the 0 for 4 or the 4 for 4, or the good night pitching or the bad night pitching. And then I think at the end of the day, no matter what kind of coach you are, I will it down to its simplest form. My job as a coach is to make my player better. How you do that is the magic. How you do that is the special sauce. However, when they know that I've earned their trust, they know I care about them, they're going to let me coach them up when that opportunity arises. Because I do believe if an opportunity arises, I'll be ready, I'll move upon it, and I'll show them that I can help them on their journey, just based on my past experiences.
Clint, I love that. I think, all of what you said resonates with me, but particularly the caring piece. we live in a world where sometimes I think because of social media, folks have a voice now, and some of the loudest voices end up being those who have the most followers. And I don't believe they always get it right. There's a narrative of like, you got to be just technically skilled and that's going to get you success. But I think to your point, obviously you got to have the technical capability, especially in the world of baseball. All the terminology you were using, does he get out of the box clean, et cetera. That's applicable and necessary. But hearing from a leadership perspective how it is that you care about them as people, I firmly believe, and I don't know that we can quantify this or there's data that supports this other than what's been out there in leadership of when someone is cared for, they're going to work just a little bit harder. And if you get to know that person a little more deeply and show that you care for them, I got to believe you want good people on your team, not just the technically skilled. So would you mind, I know I kind of piggybacked off of what you were saying, but would you maybe give us an example of where in your coaching career or as a manager in that capacity, you had someone who was maybe not as gifted on paper, but because of that attentiveness and care that you gave to them, they were able to maybe perform beyond their skill set that the scouts had said they were capable of?
Well, yeah, there's a number of examples. For me personally, I think the first one, and I'm going to use this one quickly because I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to be able to identify. Josh Harrison. Remember Josh Harrison in Pittsburgh? If you're Pittsburgh Pirate fans, you remember Josh Harrison. He was a middle infielder we got from the Cubs in a trade before I got there, but he was in our minor league system when I arrived as the manager. We brought Josh up to the big leagues, and he's like a lot of guys. Initially, all they want to do is be in the big leagues. They'll play anywhere. Yeah. And by getting Josh the opportunity to play on his athletic skill set, he could go into the outfield. He could play in the infield. He was a plus runner. There was bat to ball skills that were crazy. Sometimes it would draw you nuts because he didn't walk a lot. He would swing at ball 5, ball 6, ball 7, ball 8, and come back and want to know if he had a good at bat. And I said, well, you did. However, there was a walk in there at one point that we might want to reconsider down the line. But his versatility just became magic for him. He actually made the All-Star team in 2014 as a utility player. As a utility player. Yeah, we went and played in Minnesota that year. Matheny was the manager. He took me as a coach. Josh was a super U. And I don't remember ever reading one of the scouting reports that said, hey, this guy's going to be a super U. This guy's going to be able to play all over the diamond. And I think just caring about him, moving around, showing confidence in him. No, it's left field tonight, absolutely. And then how about center field? We'll take some balls out there for a couple of days. So I very rarely like to put a person in a game position before they had worked at it to some degree in practice. I think the other area that you buy street cred with players, with people, with your employees, your personnel, there's a human analytical system involved in everybody. It's their guts and their fortitude and their courage. And we talk a lot about statistical analysis in all forms of industry now. There's analytics in every bit of industry. There's human analytics that we need to match up. And I do think your best equation is a hybrid equation where you're matching up both. I mean, I hear the term pieces a lot, not just in baseball, but in industry. And that, to me, conveys to me that somebody's up on top looking down over and moving things around. It's almost bigger than the Wizard of Oz. You're on top and, you're manipulating, deploying pieces. I always would share with my general manager, other people, I said, just when you come to the clubhouse, talk to them as players, not pieces. They got a heartbeat, and they have a heartbeat for a reason. And I think when we address the heartbeat, we have a chance of getting the player in the position to be the best player or performer or employee they can be when they know we care about the heart of them, not just the skill set. That in and of itself humanizes everything. It's a hard game to play. And you know what? There's a lot of businesses out there that are hard. There's a lot of industry positions that are hard. And we try and break free from also the one thing that you hear about, well, that's the way we've done it, and we're going to keep doing it. Tradition can be a wonderful thing, but tradition can be a vision killer as well.
Yes.
Because there are new ways to do things. And when you can get the engagement from your players through their ownership or your employees through their ownership, that's when your opportunity for growth comes. Because if you have, say you got in a clubhouse, I had 25 players and I had probably had another 20 staff members. So there's 45 people in that clubhouse. Do you think every decision I'm going to make every day, I'm going to bat 1,000? No, I'm not.
Right.
Do
Right.
you think there may be some skill sets in that clubhouse that are better than mine in certain areas that if I can find a way to tap into and connect with, we're all going to be better served? Because when you take somebody else's idea and then you share with a group that it was somebody else's idea, you show your authenticity, you show your vulnerability, and you also show that, hey, we got people here that are pretty cool, they're pretty smart. Everybody feels empowered. Everybody probably has a feeling, well, you know what? The next time he asks me something, I'm going to share a little something. But when somebody throws an idea to you and you swat it down like you're Matumbo back in the day in the NBA, I mean, they're not going to bring you much after that.
Right.
When we empower, when we encourage, when we embrace, I think that's when we get the good stuff starting to happen.
Yes, definitely. Matumbo, that's a good example there for those listening in. The Kembe Mutombo was a famous NBA player. He played for the Hawks, right, Clint? Was it the Hawks?
The Hawks, and I think the
7-6.
Rockets, and he led the league in block shots every year he ever played. He knocked everything
sure
down.
did. He sure did. Gosh, that was a fun time watching in the NBA, certainly. So with you, that was wonderfully answered, and it gave good context. I wanted to touch on the human piece because I was glad you mentioned that, because again, I think it's so often overlooked. You hear in the technical, I don't want listeners to misunderstand. Like, we have to double down on our technical skills and be good at those things. But as from a leadership perspective, helping your people feel better about self and recognizing them as human can inherently help them perform better, just that deepened care and connectivity. I would like to kind of continue on this path we're on as it relates to skill set of players, because you've been exposed to so many great players, those who are innately gifted and then maybe didn't live up to their potential, and then again those who maybe weren't by the scouts deemed to be the best of the best but yet rose up. All of that being said, and I know this might be a broad question, Clint, but is there one recurring habit that you've seen from players who performed the very best? I'm selfishly a McCutchen fan. I know he played well for you all in Pittsburgh, but someone like him who you've been around, who's been an elite performer, an all-star, is there one recurring habit that you can say, yeah, all of them had this in common? If so, what is this?
100%. And I'd start with discipline. The ability to do the mundane, the ability to do the next drill, the ability to learn from past mistakes, the discipline to show up when you don't feel 100%, the discipline and responsibility comes with being a leader on your team to show them what right looks like when everything's going wrong, the discipline to care, empathy for teammates, the discipline to have ownership of either failure or success. The good ones that I've been around so many, I've played with so many, they did the ordinary extraordinary. They did the fundamentals better consistently than I did or other people could do. And I do think there's just a discipline. I think there's a physical discipline involved, and I believe there's a mental discipline involved. And I think we all there's so much strength we can garner, physical strength. And I think the mental part, your mindful journey, the program, the process, what you believe in, I mean, that's tapping into, it's hard to quantify. Isn't that a wonderful thing that we can't quantify it? Although I know some people that disrupts them because they feel they've got to know everything. For me, I don't need to know everything. If there's more out there, I just need to go find more. Because we've all learned over time that the more you learn, the less you know. And I think the elite have a mindset to just keep on that journey. They eliminate distractions in a healthful, meaningful way. I do believe they have some type of balance or rhythm in their lifestyle that when they do go home, they're home. Because there's other people involved in this journey. I do know some athletes that basically when they went home, they were never home. They were always either at the gym or on the field. And you know what? It didn't end well for most of them. They may look good on the field and the numbers may match up if you're a fan. If you could track the 5 years after the game or the 10 years after the game, it's not as pretty as when they were playing. They don't have a clubhouse to go back to. They don't have a game to plug into. They don't have a level of competition that's fierce, and you're on the cutting edge every day, and fans are letting you know if you're good or bad, and your team gets an L or a W at the end of the day, and that's what quantifies, your skill set. So the discipline to stay the course, the discipline to show up, the discipline to keep your routines or your habits in place, I would say that is the first separator that I see from the elite, then down to the very good, and then it drops down to the good, and then below average.
That's interesting. It's great to hear from your perspective, and not surprising. From afar, tying this to the football world, not baseball. I've always been, as a Steeler fan, I hated Tom Brady, right, because he always kicked their butt. But as I grew out of that fan mode, if you will, I developed a respect for him because, from afar, when you're watching what he's doing on the sideline, when the cameras are on him, whether he scores a touchdown or throws an interception, he's going right back to the, technology to assess what had gone right and what had gone wrong, probably more importantly, in that previous drive. And I think you can tie that into discipline. And I'm assuming in the baseball world, the same was true. If a player had an 0 for 4 night, the next day they were in the clubhouse, or probably even that night they were reviewing film and assessing, maybe why their swing was out of the whack or where they went wrong. Is that fair to say? I mean, is that the type of discipline that the best of the best had, that they were constantly assessing?
I would agree with you. And I also say there's a discipline to knowing when to let it go. You go for 4 and hit 4 balls on the screws and are right at people, but you didn't get a hit. And I've seen people make hard outs over consistent time, lose fact of that they can't control the ball once it's off the bat, right? And because they're not getting the result, their self-esteem or self-confidence gets tied to a base hit. And if they're not getting the base hit, there must be an alteration somewhere, or an adjustment somewhere, or a time to pivot somewhere. Before you know it, they're taking a pretty good swing and turn it into a not very good swing because they weren't getting the result they felt they needed to have to justify the way they were doing it. I think the best have the ability to flush. And what I mean by that, I used to have a term that we used in the locker room. We used it in Colorado. Excuse me, I took it to Pittsburgh. Shower well. I tell the men, shower well. What that means, Adam, is no matter what you've gone through the day, how much grit, grime, public disdain, we get booed. I mean, I've been booed by 40, 50,000 people after a pitching change or after a game, or we get evaluated on a series of circumstances that may or may not have been in our control sometimes. But you have to have the ability, for me, when I go in, I took that shower that entire day, whatever that day was, all of it is getting off me and going down the drain. I'm leaving fresh. I'm going to show up fresh the next day with fresh eyes and fresh ears, and I'm going to be ready to go.
Great analogy. Very powerful. All of us, I believe, can take value away from that. That's good stuff there, Clint. You touched on something about how, some of your players you've seen would, kind of hold on to their 0 for 4 night, and then their self-esteem would be impacted. And that leads me to think about how pressure in that world is so, so prevalent, right? You're playing professional baseball, which you're already becoming one of the elite of the elite. And I know, reading a little bit about your history, I think you had been deemed like the top prospect in 1978 in all of Major League Baseball. So you dealt with pressure both as a player and then as a manager, taking a team to the World Series. And I think people today, tying this back to human life, so many people are operating today with pressure of the unknown in their careers. We're seeing large companies laying people off at rapid rates, and a lot of fear and angst and anxiety, and folks who are just operating with pressure, whether it be financial or relational or personal, not knowing if an illness is going to, perpetuate into something worse. I'd love to hear from your vantage point and your perspective, both, personally of what you maybe have done, and then those around you, what they've done. What can people do who are on this call listening right now feeling like they're operating with this insurmountable pressure and they don't know how to continually show up as themselves?
Well, we've probably all heard some cliches. Control the controllables. That's real. When you really peel back the layers on that, which I started doing probably about 20, 25 years ago, I said it. I'll control the controllables. Yeah, I'll control what I can control. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, do it every day. The realistic nature of it, there's not much in my control.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my life is out of my control. What is in my control is the way I react to the things that happen during my day. I can have preparation for the day, and in the middle of the day, what's happened to me the last couple of days, something's come up where I've had to pivot. How do I react to the pivot? You know what? I got to pivot. Plan A did not work. I need to have a plan B. Sometimes I need a plan C. Some days I've needed a plan D. Some days I just need to go home. I think there's a sense of security in your preparation. Mm-hmm. Peyton Manning had a saying back in the day when he would come out to the ball field and watch Todd Helton, them both being from Tennessee. He'd say, pressure is what you feel when you don't know what you're doing. Fear, I think, attacks us in the areas that we're not well versed in or we're not prepared in. If we haven't done our due diligence to be aware of what we're stepping into, if we at least haven't done the timeline of what our day is going to look like, have I eliminated distractions I need to get through today? Have I put myself in a position to be on time for each one or early? I mean, a lot of people's day starts, they're late when they go out the door. Mm-hmm. That's on them. Usually that's on them. Now, when you've got, when you're married and there's kids, there's always some outliers. However, do the best you can with what you've got with where you are. I think Teddy Roosevelt said that. I mean, there's not a whole lot new under the sun. For me personally, my faith plays a big role in everything I do. Mm-hmm. If there's a pivot in my life, normally I'll say, thank you. I don't know what was going that way, but you redirect me, I'm going this way. Mm-hmm. I've been fired 3 times, and for whatever reason, I know I'm a blessed man. I've gotten a better job on the outside of being fired every time. Last time I was let go, I ended up with an unbelievable opportunity to stay home. I've never been paid for work I haven't done in my life. And the last time when I was fired in Pittsburgh, it's the first time I got paid to not work. Yeah. Who could come up with that plan? That's not something I ever thought of. Well, let me try and get that job down the road when I'm 60 years old. When I'm 62 years old, I want to fill out my contract. Then I was going to think about retiring. God placed me in an HOV lane to retirement. I actually went home the end of November. We moved to Florida because our retirement home was ready ahead of time. Yeah. And then COVID hit. I retired on November 15th, and then the world retired on March 15th. And it worked out well for us. My kids needed to be homeschooled. My wife wanted no part of it. Carla throws horseshoes. If she threw horseshoes, she'd throw ringers at everything but homeschooling kids. She tried it once. It didn't work for anybody. So when our kids got sent home, she looked at me and goes, honey, this is a godsend. You're home. The kids are home. Handle this. I got to homeschool, a 9th grader and an 11th grader. And it was crazy cool. I failed every day in some area, but I learned. I picked up some new best friends, Alexa, Siri, Google, all became teammates. There was so many learning opportunities. And that's the one encouragement that I'd really like to make sure everybody would revisit at some point after this, when you share this mindful journey that we're on today. Continue to grow. We're not finished products. Continue to look for growth opportunities. I actually do a 1-word challenge with everybody that's significant in my life. I used to do it with my coaches, used to do it with my players. A book written by John Gordon, Dan Britton, who's the COO of FCA, global COO, and a guy named Jimmy Page, not the guy that shredded for Led Zeppelin. This is another Jimmy Page. John Gordon's a close personal friend of mine now, but at the time he was just another name he was a motivator. He was a leadership teacher. But the 1-word challenge means you would grab a word, or the word would find you more often than not. And we put them on baseballs in my life. Now I still put it on a baseball, but I do with people that aren't playing baseball. And I just commit to that word for a year. What that word means personally, what that word means professionally. And it gives me some structure, and it makes me revisit that word during the day. Back when we were playing ball, we would trade balls on every road trip. The coaches we would exchange balls. So I'd have Ray Seary, my pitching coach's ball, one week. Then I'd have the first base coach's ball another week. We'd learn more about each other. We'd collect coins on each other. We developed a relationship with each other. And my word this year, actually, I stumbled into it. It's a word that I was made aware of a few years ago, but it's called mudita, M-U-D-I-T-A, mudita. It's a Buddhist term for expressing continuous joy for someone else's success. How much better of a place to live would it be if we all could spread some mudita on ourselves and the people that we love? Because when you watch good teams, and I mean good teams, whether it's Dick's Sporting Goods, their big corporate complexes in Pennsylvania, Star-Kissed, Heinz, or you watch the Steelers, or you watch the Penguins, or the Pirates, the good years, those teams celebrate each other's successes like nobody's business. I've been on teams that didn't celebrate everybody's successes. I've played on it, and I've coached teams, and I've managed teams that were like that. I can remember one year I was on a team, when I hit a homer, I think I was the only one on the team who's happy I hit a homer.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think there's working environments like that as well.
Yeah.
To some degree. But that goes back to the things we talked about initially: the trust, the care, the coaching. Do you care about me? Can you make me better? Can I trust you? When we can get those put together, I think there's a sense of community that becomes real and transitional. And it just happens. It's not forced. And for those out there today, the encouragement piece of it is, lean into your fears, lean into what you're not good at a little bit. You can't keep running from it, because I think my grandpa a long time ago was the first one that said, son, life's going to give you a lesson. Every year, every day or something, you're going to get a lesson. He said, you're going to keep getting that lesson until you learn the lesson. And he said, you know what you get after you learn that lesson? You're nodding your head, you've heard it. You get another lesson. So if there's those things that we're saying, well, I don't know, and I'm worried about my job, do the best you can where you are. Be the best, whatever you are that day. And then try and put another day behind it. Because the term great, for me, Todd Helton just went in the Hall of Fame. He's a great player. But you know how he landed on great? He was good for a long, long, long time. I'm just trying to be good today.
I love that. Oh, there's so much to unpack there, Clint. Gosh, we might have to do a part 2 of this whole conversation. Because there, again, so much in so many directions I want to take this. I do want to, we've had a few comments that came in, and as I was able to peruse them briefly, I'd like to touch on was about rhythm. The guest said, love the concept of rhythm. Would you be able to expand on what that means to you? And then I do got one other baseball-based question that came in here, but let's start there if you don't mind. So the guest says, love the concept of rhythm. You mentioned at the beginning of the interview, then you just brought it up again, which I also love. So this is timely. Would you be able to expand on what that means to you and what it looks like?
Well, I think there's different gravitational seasons in every year, right? We have 4 different seasons. And I think within those seasons, your job can pull you. Everybody they may have a pretty good understanding of their job if they've been at it for a couple of years. Even if it's a fresh new job that's uncharted territory, I think instead of saying, okay, when I'm here, I'm going to be here. When I'm home, I'm going to be home. If you can do that, God bless you. I struggled with that. And especially once the baseball season started, truthfully, it wouldn't be fair to me to say, okay, I'm going to be 50-50. I'm going to be home 50%, and I'm going to be no, I'm on the road 2 weeks out of every month. The season runs hot for 9 months. We're in the public eye 162 times. There's talk shows, there's press. For balance, it was a fist fight for me to fight for balance. I just found a better way to go with the rhythm. Okay, during the baseball season, I need to have this rhythm. When am I going to wake up early to have my quiet time so then I can be there for my kids when they wake up and I'm not busy? I'm listening to them. Yes. When can I provide time for my wife before I go to the park and I'm not figuring out tonight's lineup at 11 o'clock when I'm sitting across the coffee table from her? Can I find different times when I'm not at my job to plug into something else that has nothing to do with my job?
Mm-hmm.
When I walk through that clubhouse door, I need to be the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I also need to be a friend. I also need to be an encourager. I try and eliminate the title when I go in the door, understanding that I do know I'm the manager.
Mm-hmm.
However, I try and develop those relationships and develop a rhythm with my people so they can have a relationship with Clint Hurdle, not Clint Hurdle, the manager of the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
The rhythm at work is tearing down those walls that I see. I'm on a corporate speaking tour. I was for about 6 weeks. Now I'm doing a collegiate baseball, first pitch banquet tour. Be at Gardner Webb this weekend. I'm going to be at the University of Utah next week. I've got a couple more things coming up. But when I talked to them about the coaches, I said, develop a rhythm with your coaches and your players. They're not talking to the head coach. They're talking to Gary. They're talking to Adam. They're talking to Clint. Because I found the hard way. I said, I've been fired 3 times. I thought I was developing friendships in each place. And then when I got fired, it was amazing how many people I thought I had a friendship with, I never heard from again. They had a relationship with my title, Adam. They didn't have a relationship with me.
That's powerful.
That goes back, for me, that goes back to the balance, but I call it rhythm. I need to be vulnerable enough to show them that, okay, yeah, I'm your manager, but I also can be a friend or a mentor or something else. At the end of the day, I'm responsible for a lot, but right now what I'm responsible for is listen to you if you got a problem. Mm-hmm. My family feels it when I'm in a good rhythm. My family feels it when I'm not in a good rhythm. And that's for everybody that's listening today. There are people that you care about that know when you're in a good rhythm or you found some balance, and they know when you haven't. And sometimes it's just best to ask them, hey, what do you see right now? I would say, hey, how am I looking? How am I showing up for the family right now? My wife and I, we went through a period of time. I did it with my coaches. I still do it. I think a good exercise for a manager or a director, and he's got people working with him or under him, but they're working with you. I used to do a 3 up, 3 down, like every 6 weeks. I would have them come in my office and tell me 3 things I was doing well, and then share 3 things they didn't think I was doing well. You know how hard that is for somebody that's got a title in their mind below yours, and they're going to walk in your office and tell you 3 things you didn't do well?
Yeah.
It was hard. It was like an algebra test in a dentist chair for some of my coaches when we started. After 3 years, Adam, these guys are coming in, sitting on the couch, throwing their feet up on the desk, going, hey, Clint, you had a tough 6 weeks, man. I got a couple ups, but I've probably got 5 or 6 downs. And I go, no, we're gonna stay with a 3 up, 3 down program. I need to hear 3 good things, and I only need to hear 3 hard things.
Yeah.
But the wall gets torn down and the bridge gets built. They're not talking to the guy with a title. And what that also does, it helps you learn so much about what's important to the people you're working with, and that you've put also in very important positions.
Yes. Yes. So true. And that goes back to how you're making them feel on the front end and the culture you're creating, right? Like letting them know that it's okay to speak up. That cadence of 3 up, 3 down. I'm sure when it first started, they were saying, Clint, we think you could maybe done this a little different. But over time, as you let them in, it inherently gave them the confidence to say, you know what? Yeah, this is Clint, the manager, but Clint, the friend, and he wants this because we're organizationally, the vision is to win a championship, right? And I think when in an organization or anything else, I had Pat Croce on here, who you may know the name. I think I told you that. Pat, I asked him, he had Larry Brown and Allen Iverson when they were going to, I think it was 2003 or 2001, they made it the NBA Finals. And in the media, they were saying they were butting heads. And I asked Pat, what did you do to get them working together? And he said, really, Adam, it was about what the common vision is, getting them to empathize with one another. Although they came from different areas, we're here. You might not love each other, but how can we work together toward that common vision? And I wanted to bring up that example because I think there's a lot of connection there from what you're saying from a standpoint of when we're working toward a vision. There's value. I don't want to get too far off because I do want to answer this baseball question. It's actually one from one of my childhood friends, and John is he told me in advance to say hello to you. He's a Pittsburgh Pirate fan, diehard. We grew up 3 houses away from each other. He asks, this is baseball purely. He says, July 26, 2011, bottom of the 19th inning, Jerry Meals makes the worst safe call at home plate in history of baseball. The Pirates lose 4-3 to the Braves. 2 questions, best guess. What was your blood pressure in that moment? 1. And 2, how do you lead 26 players past that moment and get them, this is a good question, get them to refocus before the next game?
All you'd have to do is watch a replay of the videotape. I started my argument with Jerry at home plate, and I was in his back pocket all the way as the gate opened and the umpires headed to their room. I actually tried to get to their room after that, and they wouldn't let me down the hallway. They had it all blocked off. The most disappointing, heartbreaking call that I've ever been a part of. Our men, their men, had played 6.5 hours of baseball to get to that point. I had a pitcher, Daniel McCutcheon, pitch innings he shouldn't have pitched, thrown pitches he never should have pitched. He was the last guy. He was the last man. After him would have been, a position player. One of the shortstop. It could have been Mercer pitching. Or he had poured everything in his heart out. Everybody had poured everything in their heart out all night. And for the call to go the way it did, McHenry was the catcher. I mean, I go beet red. I can't even cut. My blood pressure was off as high as it possibly could ever be. So anyway, I called Joe Torre. Frank Coonley called Joe Torre. We called anybody. I was probably up till 6 o'clock in the morning. My wife was with me on that road trip. And I was on the phone. Finally, I just put down the phone. I go, you know what? What am I doing? Sooner or later, I'm going to need to get some sleep because there's going to be a game tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I did say something to those men that night. I said, we are all bent or broken right now over what just happened. I'm not going to tell you to feel better. I'm going to ask you to go home, get some sleep when you can. We're going to show up tomorrow. We're going to hash this thing out and find out what our plan of attack was. We got together in the morning, and basically it was like, a talk my father probably gave me 12 times when I was growing up. Life's not fair. Baseball's not fair. What happened to us last night was not fair. How we react to it is either going to gain momentum for the call that was made, or it's going to gain momentum and put our investment back in us, the courage in us, the belief in us, the ability to overcome, the ability to face some hard adversity, to persevere and to rise above. That was the message I gave him the next day. But we had some players stand up, and McCutcheon shared, Harrison shared. I think McHenry, the catcher, he's looking at people. He said, "Oh, my mother's grave. I touched him. I tagged him." Whatever it was, and we all just needed to grieve a little bit together, and then we just needed to let it go and go play. There was another game.
Yeah, good stuff, John. If you're still listening with us, thanks for those questions. That's good stuff, and Clint, appreciate your vulnerability here with us, letting us know that, hey, you reacted in a way that had some anger and frustration too, right? Like you're human, and then you finally got to a point where you realized kind of what you're sharing with us here today. We can't control this anymore, so we have to move forward. So great. I'd like to, I shared just a little bit in advance of, our intention with Mindful Journey. We're trying to normalize and humanize the tough stuff that we all go through. And when we had talked, you and I, you said, hey, just find some of my bio online, take what you want off of there. And you and I didn't talk about this in advance, but I'd seen something that you had some challenges with alcohol at one point in your life and have been a proponent of Alcoholics Anonymous. If that is accurate, would you mind, to your level of comfort, Clint, because we've had folks on here again who've shared some heart-wrenching things of losing loved ones to cancers, their own cancer diagnosis, their own battles with addiction, etc. What we're trying to let people know is that we all face stuff. But what I'd love to hear from your vantage point, maybe one, again, to your level of comfort, what do you perceive being the trigger that caused you down that path? And then secondarily, and perhaps more importantly, how did you get through it?
Well, yeah, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have 25 years of sobriety. My wife, Carl, and I have been married 24 years. Before that, I had been divorced twice. I created a lot of collateral damage in my life along the way. You mentioned earlier, Harold, a can't miss prospect that missed on the cover of Sports Illustrated with unlimited potential. You want to put a heavy harness on somebody, drop unlimited potential on them. At the time, I didn't know what I didn't know. I tried to wear it. I tried to prove them right. I tried to make everybody in the stadium happy. I found out a hard lesson early on that when you ever try and make everybody happy, you're probably going to make more people angry than you are happy. You need to be your authentic self. When you run into hardship, heartache, hard times, you need to do what you did when you were a kid. Most of the times when you're a kid, you told your dad, you told your mom, you told a friend. We all, not all of us, but most of us, as we grow up, we feel we got to be bulletproof. Well, I'll give you some really insane man mentality that I had. If I dug myself in a hole, I was going to dig myself out. Brilliant. What a concept. What a game plan. The guy that dug himself in the hole, now I'm going to trust him to dig myself out. No, that's when you say, I'm in a hole. And you go, anybody else ever been in a hole? How did you get out of the hole? Can you give me some thoughts about getting out of a hole? Me not living up to what I felt the unlimited potential and the expectations of so many others. Really, I just found a different ways. It didn't bother me as much when I was drunk. And then I got good at being drunk after the games. And I don't have anybody to blame but myself. I don't, alcoholism I probably could dig in my family tree and find somebody somewhere. But no, not my mom and dad, not my grandma and grandpa, not my sisters, none of that. I was put in an environment which it was easier to fall into some traps. I had money, I had freedom, big cities, bright lights, but I succumbed to weakness. I didn't use the defense mechanisms that truly I knew I had. I could have used, and I didn't. I kept saying, I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. The smallest package in the world is a man wrapped up in himself, and I was. And I dug some very big holes. And it wasn't until I realized that I did not have control over my life had become unmanageable in some areas. I just had a deep desire to stop drinking. And the call that probably triggered it, I had a couple events triggered. One, I drove off an interstate 70 miles an hour. Told people I fell asleep at the wheel. I didn't fall asleep. I was drunk. But anyway, my car was a 4Runner. They're 13 feet wide. I went through two lighted towers, cement towers on I-95 that are 16 feet apart with cement foundations that if a car would hit them at 70 miles an hour, you get blown up. Everything would be totaled. Nobody's going to live through that. The car went straight through them somehow, some way, into a ditch, flipped, rolled. I ended up in somebody's cul-de-sac. Anyway, that obviously that got my attention. But here's the point of not understanding you have a disease. The first thing I thought about was, how was I going to get out of this? Not did I hurt anybody? Did I hurt myself? Well, that triggered a sequence of events that I had to find. I had to go through some court systems. I had to work my way through some community service. But at one point in time, I remember calling home and my mom said, look, I don't care what you do the rest of your life. Just stop drinking. I can remember like it was yesterday. And my wife now, Carla, actually during that sequence of events, those were probably the big three. Carla, I can remember after 2 failed marriages, I dated Carla for 6 years. I never had to date anybody in my life, really. I didn't date. We'd go out. It wasn't dating. It wasn't committing to somebody. It wasn't building a relationship, growing to somebody else, meeting their needs, understanding how to serve. But after 6 years, I thought, this is like this is the best woman I've ever met. If I don't ask her to marry me now, she's going to leave. So I still asked her to marry me for all the wrong reasons. And she looked at me, Adam. She batted those big, beautiful brown eyes. She goes, that's an interesting question. I said, that's not the answer I've grown accustomed to. She goes, Clint, there's really a good guy in there, but I don't know when he's going to get out. And when he does come out, I don't know how long he's going to be around, because there's this other guy that comes out too. He's not mean. I just don't love him. And he's not what I want to be around. You need to figure some things out. And the biggest one you need to figure out, until you find a way to make yourself happy, you'll never, ever have a chance at making me happy. So that's when I developed my road to recovery. I got in AA. I went through counseling. I did a lot of work on myself. And I think the best thing that came from it, at least for her perspective, was I didn't ask her every 3 or 4 days or every week how I was doing. Because I was a people pleaser. I've been a people pleaser my whole life. Hey, how am I doing? Hey, how'd that sound? How'd that look? I just did it. I just kept doing the work, kept doing the work. 2 years down the road, I decided finally, okay, I think I'm in a pretty good place. She said, until I like myself or can have fun myself, don't bother asking. Well, I was in that spot and I asked her to marry me. And she said yes. So my road is real. The life experiences that I've gained are invaluable. I do believe I've been given that platform to help others through their challenges. One of the things in AA is anonymity. Well, I've kicked my anonymity to the curb because I've chosen to. No, I have. I've chosen to.
Yeah.
I want others to understand what you think you look like. Most of the time, people know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many people that knew I had a drinking problem that I was trying to cover up or disguise or whatever. And then, when you go through the process of healing, of making amends to all the people you hurt, that's intense. Because there's some people will put their arm around you and say, oh, God bless you. It's about time you figured it out. I hope it all goes well. And there were some people I went back to and said, just get away from me. You've hurt me and you just got to walk. Mm-hmm. My job was to apologize. I can't control how they're going to feel towards my apology. I just need to make the amends I need to make and move on. It's helped me in many facets of life. I still go to AA. I sponsor 4 men on the island that we live on here on Amory Island that I meet up with and spend time with. And it's made my life so much better. The things that have happened in the past 24 years, I could not have scripted. It hasn't been all giggles and high fives. We've got a daughter born with a birth defect. I've been fired a couple times in that journey, but it's all worked out. It's all made sense. And it's given us an opportunity of freedom to have a life that's significant and special, just based on honesty and transparency and trust.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Clint, thank you so much for just your vulnerability. And, I certainly feel, and I think I can speak for everyone who will hear it later or hearing it now, the authenticity and the emotion felt from those moments, especially, I can imagine what it was like hearing from your mom when she said, I don't care what else you do the rest of your life. Just promise me you won't drink. It's powerful, powerful, and grateful for you. And so thankful that you've taken the pain and what some may view as suffering, and now devoted yourself to helping others. And I think we can all take a lesson away from that, because I personally, when going through my own challenges, have found that I inherently feel better when I'm able to take the pains had and serve others. And I know that seems like it can feel counterproductive, but for those listening in, I mean, you're a great testament to that, right? Like just being able to now sponsor 4 men who are going through something you went through 20 some years ago. I'm sure that continues to help in your recovery. Is that fair to say?
Well, there's no doubt, because along the line, I've had good friends, people I've come to know that, don't get sober. They continue to relapse. Yeah. And that in and of itself ensures the fact that I'm not going to drink again, because I see the heartbreak, the heartache, the collateral damage done in families. I see women leave husbands. I see husbands leave wives. Alcoholism, it's it's an equal opportunity employer. It doesn't matter your color, your race, your religion. And it can be devastating. However, as bad as it ever gets, there usually, unfortunately, needs to be a bottom for somebody. And I've actually shared this quite bluntly with some guys. I said, did you hear that noise? They say, what? I said, that was your ass hitting the ground. You can't go any lower. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do now? I can't get you sober. I can help you on your journey, but there's got to be a point in time in your life where you decide you want sobriety more than you want anything else. I know it sounds crazy, but all those other things you think you want, you'll get. I have a trusting wife now. I have children. I got 3 different children that love me. Only one of them seen me drunk.
It's amazing.
I was a man at 17 years in the big leagues. I'm a recovering alcoholic man at 17 years in the big leagues. That's not the way anybody draws it up. And I let the people know that I was working for, along the way. This is what you're getting.
Yeah.
I don't want you to hear it from anybody else.
That's awesome. Good. Was there a time, I know our time is, we got 5 minutes left. I promise you an hour. So I want to have a lighthearted question on the back end of this relative to baseball. But I am curious if you had a temptation in that span because I think you were fired twice I know you said 3 times, but in those 24 years that you've been sober, you've faced some tough times. Did you ever have a temptation to revert back to alcohol? And if so, what was the determinant that said, no, I will not go back?
I never have. I never have. I'm blessed.
Okay.
I've got buddies that wake up every morning and the first thing they want is a drink. They've been sober 30 years.
Wow.
I've got women that I know that the first thing they think about is having a drink. And, they've got some sobriety on their side. And whether it's sobriety or drugs, you're in that tangled web. I have not personally. 2 firings, a daughter born with a birth defect. You want to talk about heavy? That was probably the heaviest of the 3. The challenges that come with that in a marriage, in a relationship, the weight of the responsibility my wife felt, that I felt, that we had to work through together. And then over the course of 21 years now, the posse of people that have come into our life that want to help and support us and Maddie, just because that's what they do. It's not because Maddie's daddy's the manager of anything. Matter of fact, for the last 5 years, Maddie's daddy's not the manager of anything. Not even the meat market that the fans used to tell me I couldn't manage at Pittsburgh. You can't manage the meat market. I can remember hearing that. But I've never felt that. I know people that have. And when they do, they will tell you they have they call their sponsor. They pivot in another direction. They pick up a Bible. They pick up a phone. They pick up a book. They go run. They work out. They do something to take their mind that's fixated on having that drink or that drug and put it in another sphere until they connect with somebody that'll hold their hand through it or walk them through it. Spend some time with them. It's not doing it on your own. It's not, there's so much support out there, and all of us that are in the AA community. It's called 13 stepping. It's dropping whatever we got if somebody calls upon to help them out if they need it.
Good context. And again, thanks for the additional context there. Back to baseball. You've been around so much, took the Rockies to the World Series, I think winning 21 of 22 games, getting them there, took the Pirates to the playoffs again, 3 straight years. And I know what it was like in Pittsburgh, though I wasn't living there at the time. I think it's unlike anything that they've experienced. All of this to say you've been around some cool things, right? From the outside viewing in. What's your favorite baseball memory if you can narrow in on just one? I know that's a tough question. Maybe 2, 3. We're not going to hold this against you.
Well, I'm going to give you 2 of the obviouses because I need to tease each fan base that I've been involved with. I'm so respectful and thankful and grateful for the time spent in Denver as the manager of their baseball team, and of Pittsburgh as the manager of their baseball team. We had a play-in game in Denver that ended in 13 innings with a Matt Holliday slide at home plate that propelled us into the division playoffs, part of that 21 out of 22 game streak we were on. TBS recorded the game, one of the most amazing games I've ever been a part of, to watch the ebb and flow of the game, the way it finished. A delayed hesitation call at home plate by Tim McClellan before he puts his arms up, and Holliday was safe. He was actually I think he had a concussion. The crowd, the event, and then to go on and win a national championship. However, the blackout game in Pittsburgh, there's days I feel like it was yesterday. When AJ and Kutch reached out to the city and said, hey, everybody wear black, the vibe coming over that bridge at noon was real. Hearing the music outside and the footsteps outside from 2 o'clock till 6 o'clock was real. When we walked down the field, the park showed off. The fans showed off. Fortunately, the Pirates showed off that night. We had a wonderful performance from Liriano. The fans, nod, Cueto off the mound. He drops the ball.
Yeah.
Martin hits it in the left center field bleachers over the North Shore notch. I mean, that was a generational win because you had grandfathers with their sons, and you had grandmothers with their daughters and their kids watching the game. It had been 21 years since we'd been to a playoff. For me, though, the selfish pleasure, I was managing the 2008 All-Star game because the Rockies, we had been the National League champions. You get to manage the National League club the next year. They had the 100 living legends, All-Star living legends. Anybody that was an All-Star, a Hall of Famer, came to the park that night that could get to the park. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Willie McCovey, Johnny Bench. I mean, on and on and on and on and on. We're the third base dugout. There's only one way they can come off because of the one elevator they have for a wheelchair. Was Willie McCovey was in his wheelchair. They had to come off the third base. They weren't going to split up and go team to team. They all wanted to walk off the same way together as a group. They chose the third base dugout because that was the only way Willie stretch, scoop could get down. And to have Willie Mays come by and say, Clint, go get him tonight. Beat him. We need to win. To have Henry Aaron, Pat get on the back. All these guys, Koufax. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Legends,
The 6-year-old kid in me was screaming. And so my dad and my family's at the game. We played 15 innings. We lost a tough one at the end. I can remember getting home at 3 o'clock in the morning. My dad and I look at each other. He goes, so what was the best part of your day? And I got to relive that whole sequence of events. I said, Dad, it wasn't the game. It was when those Hall of Famers walked off the field and called me by name and shook my hand as they went in the clubhouse.
That's so cool. And wow, some legends. I would have been 100% starstruck too there, Clint. That's really cool. Well, I am going to pause there because I want to be, I've already taken an extra minute. I'm going to put up your barcode here for those listening in. And then again, those watching later. Clint sends out I believe a daily email, right, Clint? And I'm going
to daily emails.
Yes. Would you mind sharing? And then with this, what I'm going to share here, would you mind just commenting to the folks how they can engage and what it is that they're engaging with?
If you have the QR code that comes up, all you got to do is take your phone, put it on your photo, and lock in the QR code. And it'll take you to my little baby website. It's a very small website. I have 2 daily devotionals that go out. I mean, one's a daily devotional, and the other is a leadership encouragement opportunity. I've just scanned it, and it's taken me to the website where you can subscribe with your email address and choose whether you want a daily devotional, you want the daily encouragement leadership email, or you want both. It's easy and it's free. It's man-proof. There's no charge, and people give me feedback. Hey, I like this. Hey, have you ever thought of that? Hey, I enjoyed this. I have respected authors, people that I read and I've learned from. James Clear, John Gordon, John Wood. Wooden Wednesday is a big hit. James Clear usually comes on Thursday. I have John on Tuesday, but I have pastors, church leaders also share in the devotional aspect. Men and women are combined in both. Then on X, there's my X handle right there. And then there's my Instagram handle. It's never going to be cynical or sarcastic. It's going to be positive. It's not going to be Pollyannish. It's going to be positive. It's going to be optimistic, but it's going to be realistic as well. Lessons I've learned the hard way or things I've found to show favor, ways to encourage, ways to build up, ways to have good confrontation, ways to have hard confrontation. Those 3 options, you can get to know me better. You can reach out and connect with me there. And where that goes, I've started getting a lot more speaking engagements now that I've been retired and have a half schedule of work. I'm involved in a lot of different organizations, a lot of different nonprofits. So I've got some experience along the way to help if you need it, or if you want to share some wisdom with me and some things that you found productive and helped me learn. I'm looking for it because I want to maintain a white belt mentality. And what that means is I just want to be a lifelong learner.
I love that. That's fantastic, Clint. And I do have just a few comments here. One says, you are such a great speaker. Answer that live. And then thank you so much for your commitment to this session. I appreciate you sharing part of your journey with us. And I echo both of those sentiments. You have been unbelievable, Clint. Those should have popped up on your screen. I don't know if you saw the comments come through or not, but so grateful for you. Thank you all who are still here with us, who listen in to today. As you see here, Clint's information, he put some good stuff out on Instagram and X, I presume the same. I haven't been on the X handle, but it's a lot of what it is that you learned from him today from a leadership perspective, and very humble and real. So please definitely connect with him there. And Clint, thank you so much again. I hope our paths cross in person soon. Just 2 hours south of you down in Naples. So I'll connect with you offline and send you a recording to this. But you've been fantastic today. Deeply grateful.
Adam, thank you for the opportunity. And I do look forward to connecting
Absolutely.
And let's do some
Great.
human analytics together.
I love it. Yes, I
All
love
right.
it. Thank you all. Take care, everyone. See you, Clint.
Bye-bye, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you.